This is a video to show you how to prepare your own fabric for the Zenzi Tinker Conservation smocking workshop. We have been able to use a even weave linen, and we have used 16 rows of gathering threads, and we've been able to use a smocking machine to produce these, but this is how you do it by hand most people won't have a smocking machine available to them. So first of all, there are 16 rows, and we have used 2 colour threads to mark them out. So we've used a yellow and a red, and we've alternated between the two. And there has to be an even number of gathering rows because you tie these together in pairs when you pull it up to do the pleats. So there has to be an even number. Also, the different colours used, you can use just one colour, but we've used 2 because it actually helps. You use these lines as a guide for when you're doing your smocking stitches, and even though they're not, they will come out at the end, different colours can help you see where you are on the smocking when you're doing the smocking stitches. So first of all, you need a piece of an even weave cotton fabric, or likewise where we've used this is a quilting cotton, and the fabric needs to be a minimum of 45 centimeters by 20 centimeters. Can be a bit bigger than that, but I wouldn't say it wants to be too much bigger, but it definitely wants to be no smaller. Also need a 2 copies of the PDF dot that we have sent for you. This will give you a grid that is a very similar size to what we've used on the smocking machine. You need 2 copies of these, because what you need to do on one of them, you need to cut it so that you can just see the edges of the dots here, and then you need to tape it together, match them up like this, and then tape them together so that you have a piece of dotted paper that is bigger than or as big as your piece of fabric. And there's my piece of fabric. You can see that that is same sort of size, bigger than it. You'll also need a spare bit of your fabric, and this is just to test out your marking method on it. A sewing needle, this is a size 10 embroidery, something to mark your dots with. A HB clicky type pencil is very good, and I've also used a little pigment pen. This one is a 0.1 sizing, and I wouldn't go any bigger than that. To make the gathering threads, 2 different coloured sewing threads, and to make the holes in the paper, I've used a sponge to rest on, and then a large milliner's needle to make the holes in my paper. So to start, I need to take my gridded paper, and then need to make holes in it with the needle, using the grid as a reference. So need to be every single dot across a row, and then a dot every third hole hole, so you missed 2 dots out, so hole, 2 dots, hole, 2 dots, hole, 2 dots, hole, 2 dots, and you do this till you have 16 holes down this side here. So to make the holes, just rest it on your flat sponge. You can use like a folded up blanket or something else you don't mind sinking a needle into repeatedly. It's just got to be reasonably firm underneath this. I wouldn't use a pile of towels because that surface tends to be a little bit uneven, but you know, like a folded up sheet or something like that can give you a firm surface. So you're just going through the hole like that. I can't really see that. And this is the bit where you need to be quite accurate with. So I'm keeping my needle very straight as I do this. See if I can do it on an angle just to show you. So just like that. When that's done, if you turn it over, you should be able to see a grid like this. And you'll have the entire piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper that you've taped together, done like this. And there's the 16 rows down. It's easier to see it from the back once you've then done all your holes in it. So from now on we'll be working from the back of the piece of paper. Then you need your fabric back, and you need to make sure this is flat, and I would suggest taping this to a table. Obviously test that you're not going to take any varnish off the table before you do this. It needs to be flat for the whole of the marking process. It can't be picked up and put down anywhere. In fact, I've got a tray here, and this piece of fabric fits nice and neatly on top of a tray, so if you did do that you could tape it to a tray and then you can move it around. And then I will be taping my piece of dotted fab paper the wrong side up so I can see where the holes are a lot clearer, and taping that to my fabric as well so nothing moves. I've only done a section of it for time, but you need to do the whole piece. Then you need to take your marker, either your pencil or your marker, and you're just going to mark through your holes. If you're using a pencil, you might need to just do a little wiggly motion, a slight wiggly motion, but ideally you want to be as upright as possible with it. I should say, but before you start doing that, you need to just test on your scrap piece of fabric. So there we go, that's one with the pencil, and then if I use the pen, just a quick dab with the pen. Don't hold the pen on too much, it'll spread too far, but the pen can be quicker. You don't need to do the wiggle with a pen. Obviously they're not in the right line, and I wouldn't go any bigger than a 0.01 pen for this, and make sure it's a pigment ink. Okay, so I'll just do a few here. And you need to make sure there's a dot at through every single hole. You can reuse this paper several times, and also what I would say is, if you're very careful, you can just do one sheet of paper and then try and line it up with the dots, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry and to tape 2 pieces together, and then you get a nice continuous piece that is as big as what you need it to be. Let's do a couple more. Okay. Once you've done, don't lift this until you've done the whole thing. and then you need to be really careful about lifting to make sure you haven't left any areas. So when you're lifting, I would say just remove like one piece of your tape. Don't remove all your tape, and just gently lift the corner to see where you've missed one. So there's 3 missing there, so I can then just go back in and do those, and I check line by line that you've done that. There we go. So once that's done, you don't have to work flat on the table anymore. So you'll end up with some lines very similar to that. As you can see, I've done some of the tacking in these. You can now just sit and do the tacking. So the tacking stitches run from, that makes each stitch exactly the same length on the front and the back, and you've got to make sure the top stitch is always in line within a column. So I'll just do some more. The other thing to note is that your gathering thread needs to be longer than the line that you're stitching, and you need to leave like a 6-inch 15-20 centimetre tail at each end. These are a bit shorter, and you can then just work this in your hand. Like that. And pull it through. Don't pull through all the way, and don't knot these into your fabric yet. When you get to the end, these haven't got enough dots. The last dot would be a down dot, so I have imagined where the up would be and brought my needle back. The needle needs to come back to the surface. So I would carry on working that like this. You do need to be careful about what marker you use. This, because these marks will not come out, but they won't be seen, so you don't want to do anything too heavy. So if I just show you what you need to do once you've done that. So then you need to take these in pairs. I've only got 5 down here, but you should have 6. So take the first 2 and tie them together. With a square knot or reef knot, or just something that's not going to move, and then take the next 2 and the next 2, so you tie them together in pairs, and that's what you need to prepare for the class.